Innovation, freedom, opportunity. It's time for the School Choice Nebraska podcast. Learn more at schoolchoicenebraska.org.
Hello and welcome to the podcast. It's the 3rd of December, 2019, and this is Rachel Terry. And we're in the middle of the Democratic primary campaigns right now. And Kamala Harris just dropped out, and Elizabeth Warren's campaign has taken a dive this past week. And interestingly, the dive coincided with an event that took place on November 21st. It was a rally that she gave a speech in Atlanta about the rights of Black women. And her rally was interrupted by a group of Black protesters from the Powerful Parent Network, which is a pro-school choice group that opposes her anti-choice education plan, which she had just released October 21st. In Warren's plan, she called for ending federal funding for public charter schools, banning for-profit charter schools, increasing regulations for all charter schools, and making it more difficult to start new charter schools. And she also said she wanted to stop private school choice programs. So if you're new to the podcast, private school choice programs are things like tax credit scholarships or vouchers or education savings accounts that make it possible for lower income people to afford tuition to private schools. So some of those things come in the form of a scholarship from an outside organization or from a voucher, or an education savings account is similar in a way to a voucher, but slightly different in its funding. So anyway, Warren started tweeting that she was public school proud and that we, quote, must stop the privatization of public schools. And she also bragged about how she attended and taught at public schools. But she didn't say anything about where she sent her own kids to school. And it was discovered that her son, Alex Warren, attended private school. So back to her speech in Atlanta with the protesters from Powerful Parent Network. After the rally, Warren tried to do the right thing by talking with the protesters, and I admire her for doing this. She talked to one of the parents, Sonny Thomas, and Sonny recorded the 17-minute conversation and posted it on Facebook. And there were a couple of interesting things that came out of that conversation. First, Warren accidentally made a good case against the idea that you can fix education by throwing more money at it, saying, quote, I told all my folks back in Massachusetts, you're going to get an 85% raise at all of our little child development centers. And you know how much they got? 0. Somehow it all went to the state government and never made it down. Now, this is something that happens all the time. You can look at the graphs showing spending on education over the years, and spending has gone up and up and up, and the money going to the classrooms has remained relatively the same. We're spending a lot of money on administration and non-teaching staff, and not much more on classrooms.
6 months later, and they need more money. Mm-hmm. What you do with the money we just fought for?
I understand that. I got an increase in child care development block grants of 85%. I told all my folks back in Massachusetts, you're going to get an 85% raise at all of our little child development centers. You know how much of a raise they got? 0. Somehow it all went to the state government and never made it down. So I understand that. Yeah.
Somehow, none of that money made it down to the kids. How many times do we have to say this is one of the big issues that we are talking about? This is one of the big reasons we are advocating for school choice. And Elizabeth Warren just made the argument for school choice. We are spending more and more and more taxpayer money on, quote, education, and yet the money is not making it down to where the kids are. She experienced it in Massachusetts, and the woman she is talking to here, Sarah Carpenter, is experiencing it with her own children, asking for change, and Elizabeth Warren is doubling down and saying, no, we're going to do things how they have been done. And then things really go downhill for Elizabeth Warren because Sarah Carpenter asks Elizabeth Warren if her own children went to private school.
we gonna have the same choice that you make for your kids, because I read that your children went to private
No,
school.
my children went to public school.
But we even if it was public school, it probably was the best public school. I can't pack up and say I'm leaving Hyde Park and going to Germantown. That's our suburban area, because I can't afford it. My daughter can't afford it.
I understand.
So we want to make what we got great, whether it's charter or traditional. And really, public schools are charter in where I come from, and we make parents know that charter schools are public schools too.
So let me just say, I appreciate nothing more than how much you care about your children and your grandchildren and getting them educated. And that's all I want to do. If I don't have the pieces right, then I'll go back and read it.
Go back and read it,
I'll
please.
go back and read it
And I
again.
promise you,
I
the next
promise
time
you.
you see me, if it's reading the way it's gonna benefit
Well,
our
I'm
children,
not making promises. I'll go back and read it. I
go
wanna make
read it.
sure I
Well,
got it
just
right.
read it.
That clip is so frustrating for me to listen to, because not only does Warren lie to this woman's face, the woman goes on and says, look, even if your children went to a public school, it was probably a good public school. I can't pack up my kids and drive to Germantown, which is the suburb. I just can't afford to do that. And Warren says, I appreciate how much you care about your children and grandchildren. I can't help but think she doesn't really care that much, because she is willing to fight against the options that this woman has, which is the public charter school. She wants to inhibit that. And so I'm not sure where the caring is in that statement. That's very frustrating to me. So later on, it came out that her daughter Elizabeth did go to public school, but her son went to private school for most of his education. Currently, Haverford School has its tuition and fees set at $39,000 a year. So why would this cause problems for her campaign? Well, I don't know anyone who would fault Elizabeth Warren for sending her son to a good private school. I think it's wonderful that her family had that option. Clearly, Warren was a conscientious parent. She recognized that what her son needed was different from what her daughter needed, and she went out and found the thing that worked for her son. And I say good for you to any parent who does that. The problem was that she lied about where her kids went to school, and she is working against poorer families who want the same kinds of options that she had for her children. This could prove to be possibly the thing that tanks her campaign. So far it looks like it is. And I think it's interesting, we've seen similar things here in Nebraska. Now in Nebraska, we don't have any public or private school choice, but over the last few years, I have seen how politicians have started shying away from this topic. 2 or 3, 4 years ago, there was so much blatant anti-school choice rhetoric out there on social media coming from politicians. And they've gotten quieter over the last few years. And I'm sure they're looking around the country and seeing that the politicians who come out against school choice don't do very well. And that's because you have a lot of parents who are looking for other options for their kids, and you don't want to lose their votes. Now, I just wanted to go through some of the politicians here in Nebraska who have done similar things as Elizabeth Warren. Some of them are currently in office and some are not anymore. This was from a blog post that we published in March 2018 when LB 295 was being debated. That is a tax credit scholarship bill. That one was killed. We probably will have a tax credit scholarship bill this coming session, possibly LB 670. Let's go through a few of these. So Burke Harr, who has termed out but was very vehemently opposed to the tax credit scholarship bill, attended one of the state's elite private schools, Creighton Prep. This is the kind of school that a lot of parents would love to get their kids into. It currently offers 19 AP courses, has a student to faculty ratio of 13-1. Great school, and yet he is opposing any private school choice that would help lower income kids to be able to attend such a school. Adam Morfeld attended St. Teresa's Parish School in Lincoln, which is a small, tight-knit Catholic school that currently serves about 300 students in the city that Morfeld represents. Some students thrive in smaller school settings. And you're not going to find a public elementary school that only has 300 students. So for some kids, that would be a really good fit. And yet Morfeld was another one of the senators who vehemently opposed tax credit scholarships so that lower income kids could attend the kind of school he got to attend. Sarah Howard attended Duchesne Academy of the Sacred Heart in Omaha. This is a college prep school, and traditionally 100% of the graduates go on to attend four-year universities and colleges. I'm sure we have a lot of low-income parents who would love to be able to send their kids there. Lynne Walz chose to send her own children to Archbishop Bergen Catholic School in Fremont. From that school's website, it says the school prides itself on recognizing the individual learning styles and abilities of each student. Oh, there are so many parents who would love that for their kids. They have a student-to-faculty ratio of 10-1. I was hopeful that Senator Walz would vote for education freedom so that low-income parents would be able to test the kinds of things that she did for her kids, but she didn't. In fact, she's quoted in the Journal Star. Star says, Walz also said stripping money from the general fund would make it more difficult to offer property tax relief. She said the tax credit for private school scholarships donation would exceed the amount the state spent on community college funding, behavioral health initiatives, and a whole slew of other programs that help low-income school children. Now, we can look around to other states and see how tax credit scholarship bills have affected finances. It's not a mystery. It's very clear-cut, and states that have tax credit scholarship are saving a lot of money, and the senators all have that information. They've all been informed about that, and it only makes sense. The private schools are able to educate children much cheaper than the public schools are, and the funding for these scholarships comes from businesses and individuals who donate to these scholarships, and then they just get a tax credit. So there are states that have saved many, many millions of dollars by having these tax credit scholarships. So this excuse about how it strips money away, it's not true, and I'm curious what the real reason is. Actually, I'm not too curious. So it's difficult to win elections without money, and some of the biggest donors to political campaigns are the teachers' unions. I ran for school board several years ago, and so I am aware of how this works. Or the teachers' union sent me, when I was a candidate, a survey that they wanted me to fill out to see if I would get their endorsement. I read the survey and decided it would be a waste of their time and mine if I filled it out, and so I didn't even fill it out. But we see on a local and a national level the incredible influence that teachers' unions have over politicians. It's sad when you see a politician who in the past advocated for school choice for kids, especially for low-income and minority kids, switch over and change their tune as soon as they're needing funds from the teachers union. And that's, it's just a sad reality. We don't have a union for students. We only have one for the adults. And so adult interests get represented and kids' interests get left behind. One more Nebraska politician, Dan Quick, sent his kids to Grand Island Central Catholic. It's the only school in Grand Island that offers foreign languages in middle school. And it also offers a variety of other innovative courses, including AP, dual credit, distance learning, and tech prep. So we have a lot of these politicians, they look around, they see what schools will work best for their kids, and they go out and they get it. And in Nebraska, the privileged, the wealthy can do that, but only the privileged and the wealthy can do that. Low income and middle income families don't have the ability to do that. So what we see are these systemic problems in the way that Nebraska funds education and treats children. If you live in North Omaha, you are probably consigned to sending your children to one of these schools that has less than 10% proficiency, and there's really nothing else you can do. If you have not seen the movie Miss Virginia, I highly recommend you watch it. I think you can watch it on Amazon. I'm not sure about Netflix, but Virginia Walden Ford is a mom who got her community all working together to get Opportunity Scholarships, which is a voucher program in Washington, D.C. They had to go testify before Congress, and they got that passed. And it's made a big difference in a lot of kids' lives there. Most states in the country now have private or public school choice, or both. But we in Nebraska have no school choice. And so we will probably continue to see a huge achievement gap. Right now we have one of the largest achievement gap between black and white students in the whole country. And I expect that to continue to be huge, possibly even to widen, until our state legislators can get it together and pass some legislation that will make it possible for parents in any situation to be able to go out and get what their children need, and not just be told by administrators and politicians what they are allowed to have. So thank you for tuning in. We will catch you next time. If you'd like to get involved with the school choice movement in Nebraska, go to our website, schoolchoicenebraska.org, and get in touch with us. We'll also be having our Nebraska School Choice Week events at the end of January, so look forward to those.